You have dealt with a lot of the names, the conspiracy theories, people saying that you were a paid crisis actor, an FBI apologist.
There's even one that you and I are the same person.
Yeah, well, this is proof right here that we're not. Yeah. You have much better hair. But you know, in dealing with sort of what's come at you, I know you can handle the name calling.
Police say 2 people were shot and killed last night in a dispute with their landlord in the house where they live just off Barton Street. That was followed by an armed standoff between police and the murder suspect until the police shot and killed the man. Now, with 3 people dead, neighbors say they can't remember anything like this ever happening in their area. Al Sweeney breaks down what happened last night.
Late into the night, as the standoff went on, Hamilton police called for the homeowner named Terry to put down his guns and come out. But it didn't end peacefully. The trouble started earlier in the evening, just before 6 p.m., when 2 people who lived in the house were killed, shot as they were running away from the man with the gun. Police say the 2 victims were a 27-year-old woman from Hamilton who worked as an educational assistant for the Brant Catholic School Board, and a 28-year-old Hamilton man who was an electrician. They say the dispute with the landlord was over the state of the house. After the 2 murders, a man barricaded himself inside the house as night fell. Police tried to negotiate.
Shots rang out at around 10 p.m. There was around 6 of them.
People saying that you were a paid crisis actor.
CHCH reporter Eric Vienneau was on the scene. He and others were eventually diving for cover with more bullets flying overhead.
All of a sudden, we started hearing the bullets just whizzing. It was like the crack and then a whiz over our heads, and the police said, "Get down."
People saying that you were a paid crisis actor.
The Special Investigations Unit, called into situations like this, says the gunman was eventually shot and killed by police.
Shortly after 10 p.m., there was an exchange of gunfire between the man and a police officer. The man was struck and he was pronounced deceased at the scene.
Police say the 57-year-old owner of the home, who neighbors say was named Terry, had no record of being in trouble with the police, but he was the owner of a number of registered guns.
There were multiple firearms registered to this house, which include handguns as well as long guns.
Neighbors were shaken when they heard the shooting.
Scary. It sounded like firecrackers, like that's what it sounded like. I said to my husband, "Was that gunshots?" He said, "Yes, it was." So he said, "Let's get out of the living room," because our window faces the street.
Neighbors were told to shelter in their basements until the police gave the all clear after midnight. Police say the initial dispute started when the tenants went to the landlord with health concerns about their unit. The police haven't released the names of the murder victims or the gunman, but they say none of these people were in any trouble with the police before this. In fact, they say the 2 murder victims were completely innocent. Now, neighbors say this is a quiet neighborhood. They say this kind of thing just doesn't happen here.
Feel bad for the families and feel bad for them. Like I said, this is senseless, like crazy.
What happened on Jones Road in Hamilton on Saturday is something neighbors say they will never forget.
We heard a couple bangs go off, and then of course he heard a scream.
We heard a scream, and I said, well, somebody's definitely hurt, because you don't usually hear screams like that unless somebody gets hurt.
Police say it was 5:40 p.m. when they were called for a shooting. When officers arrived, the 2 tenants, a 27-year-old educational consultant and her 28-year-old fiancé, an electrician, who were living in the basement apartment and were trying to flee from the home, were dead.
I just heard the gunfire, so I come up the front door.
This man talked to a father and son who happened to be driving by.
They told me they were just coming up Jones Street here, and the girl just had come out the door, and they were right here, so he stopped because she was yelling for help, and he told her to jump in the back of the truck, and he was just going to go up the street. And the guy come out and let her have it in the back.
Officers say the suspect, the couple's 57-year-old landlord, barricaded himself in the home. Area residents were advised to seek shelter, and roads were shut down as there was a standoff with police. 4 hours later, there was an exchange of gunfire, and the gunman was killed.
Then about 10:30, we were sitting out back and we heard more gunshots, about 7 to 9 shots.
Got out with weapons. One was crouched down here and went on our lawn, and it was a little frightening because we didn't know what was going on at all.
As dusk approached, police negotiators were in contact with the shooter, the couple's 57-year-old landlord. Police have not named the shooter. They say multiple legal weapons were registered at his address, including handguns and rifles.
Well, I know his name's Terry Barassa. He was very quiet man.
As for the victims, police say they're a 28-year-old man who was an electrician and a 27-year-old woman who was an educational assistant for a Catholic school board.
Two, needs to practice empathy and understand that regardless of where you come from or who you are, suffering is the same, and at the end of the day, we cry the same tears and we bleed the same blood. We're all human beings, and we need to start to treat each other as such and put each other in different people's shoes. I'll have the most pro-gun reform president, at least on paper, and Congress in American history, and I do believe that this time can be different.
Shots rang out at around 10 p.m. There was around 6 of them.
So we are all taking our time.
So locked down with other students, Hogg started recording videos in case they didn't survive.
We heard more gunshots, and that was when we realized this was not a drill. Because of the law that we passed, it very may well have stopped me from having to bury my own mother.
That's incredible.
Right? And that same law has been used over 6,000 times.
Look, I'm an American citizen. I'm a gun owner. I have a concealed carry permit. I carry a gun for protection.
He and members of his team may have been heckled on Capitol Hill by Marjorie Taylor Greene, now a Republican congresswoman.
And you have nothing to say. No words. We must.
But David Hogg believes that all Americans can and must come together to prevent more mass shootings.
We need to put our politics aside and get something done. Because ultimately, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. We all have people that we care about, and none of us want gun violence to continue.
High school. So good morning, Kim. Good morning to you, David. Good to see you again, David. I interviewed you a few years ago. Thank you both for being here. So let's begin with, the Parkland shooting has been covered by the